Welcome to Commander Central episode 39, and today we talk about tokens, and I don't mean the guy who wrote Lord of the Rings or the 12th man on the basketball team who can't jump. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
Were either of you two the 12th man who couldn't jump on the basketball team?
No.
I don't play sports.
All right, so that wasn't a problem for you. I'm gonna be nice here quick before we get started and say I want to shout out to my lovely wife because I got to play last night at the shop for the first time in like 3 weeks. And which was nice. That was great. And then in the middle of playing, she texts me and says, I mowed the lawn, so you don't have to deal with it tomorrow night.
Didn't it rain yesterday?
She finished it right before the rain started.
Okay.
And now it's raining tonight, so I couldn't do it tonight either. So thank you very much to my wife while I was slacking off, she took care of the lawn mowing.
Now, do you have a rider? That's the next question.
I do not.
Oh.
And
I know how your lawn is. Oh, no.
it's kind of hilly. And then she's like, it's kind of chugging along. You may have to do some tune-up work. And then she's like, don't take it to the guy across the street to fix the snowblower. I'm like, no, I won't. So anything exciting going on right now for anybody?
Atraxable is coming up.
We are getting hype for that. This is probably a good time since you mentioned it. We can talk about the cards we have selected for our friends at
Commander Cookout.
Yeah.
So, Atraxable is taking place at Grand Prix Las Vegas this June, and we are throwing down against Commander Cookout, Jumbo Commander, Commander's Brew,
And there's a fifth entrant, I believe,
and
now.
Legendary Creature.
There we go. Yep.
So if we can get a 6, we can make this into a 2 pods of 3 versus a 5-player game, which I would appreciate.
We'll have to reach out and find somebody else. I bet we can get those guys from Commander Time to do something too. And then maybe we'll throw something out there and see if we can turn this into a whole thing.
We bet we can.
All right.
So, in the deal, as if anybody was listening last week to Commander Cookout, they have announced our 5 cards we have to run in our Atraxa deck.
Yes.
Now, I don't remember them for the life of me, so I'm not going to go over them.
Mystic Decree was one, which creatures lose flying an island walk, which is fantastic when you're playing an Angel Tribal deck.
So, Ryan, Brando, here are your 5. The first being Island Sanctuary.
An original card from Revise, so you guys get to dig deep into your binders for that one.
The second is Triskaidekaphobia.
Oh, it's got an alt loss condition, which is kind of like alt win, but it's the opposite of that.
Right, and it has an alt win too.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
It's
Yeah,
both.
It does.
Celestial Convergence is an alt win for the entire table.
Yes. Yep.
Epic Struggle is another alt win card for you guys.
Man, we are so helpful. I
Yep.
can't get over what gracious competitors we are.
And the final card is Near Death Experience.
Another alt win.
Another
option
alt
for
win.
them? We are. I mean, it's almost like we want these guys to all win.
I hope they do.
I'd feel bad then if we lost to Epic Struggle somehow.
I'm going to find a way to blame you if we lose.
Right, it's going to be for sure be Chris's fault. He's not there. It'll be absolutely be his
We
fault.
didn't have our entire team. This doesn't count, right?
Right, exactly. Chris is like staying back here to guard the fort. He's watching everybody's houses when we're gone.
Pretty much.
Guarding the Dungeon of Doom.
Ooh.
Let's quick touch on a little bit of news we had since it came out in the last week or so. The Battle Bonds lands were spoiled by Gavin Verhey on Twitter. Everyone's probably seen that, but in case you haven't, they enter the battlefield tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents, and they are allied colors only. So what do you guys think of this new cycle of 5 duels?
You
In
can't.
Commander, at least.
You can't fetch them.
They're not fetchable. But there's a lot of decent. I mean, the check lands aren't fetchable. Pain lands aren't fetchable.
Right.
Those are all, perfectly good lands. Fast lands aren't fetchable. None of the man lands are.
I think they're better than the fast lands.
Yes, I would agree with that.
I mean, it's essentially a command tower most of the time in your
Most
deck.
of the time.
It comes into play untapped anytime it matters, and when you're down to like one opponent, at that point, who cares? You probably don't need that, 14th land or something.
I guess in allied colors, these officially replace the temples.
Yeah, probably because they don't come into play. Right, because temples are always tapped.
Are always tapped, unless you have something that negates that effect.
And particularly because the allied colors, there's so many other land cycle options that you don't have in enemy colors. I really wish you would have been in enemies.
Are all 10.
They might be doing all 10. You don't know.
Gavin said no. And he said there's a specific reason why they chose allied colors as well.
It must
I
have
don't know what
something to
that
do
is,
with the
but
set itself.
Yeah, I'm guessing so.
Or maybe we'll get the enemies in Commander 18.
Sure, that could be as well. But they're already I saw today they're already pre-ordering for $15 a pop, which seems high.
Yes and no.
But they're kind of unplayable in any other format. Really.
They are in any other. Well, I don't think they'd be legal in anything else other than Legacy if it's a.
That's true.
a
Yeah, true. They
supplement
wouldn't, they
set.
wouldn't be standard or modern
Yep.
legal for sure.
So I mean, as just a Commander-only product, I can see them pre-ordering for 15 because it's the only set it's going to be printed in.
It's also probably one of those things, though, like people will be eager to get theirs that first week, and then after people grab their couple, there's just not going to be much demand after that.
Yep.
Except for maybe, I want to get an extra copy in case I build a deck, but I'm really looking forward to the set, though. Like, there was so many good reprints in Conspiracy 2, and I feel like this could easily be that kind of thing where there's just a, sneak attack or show and tell kind of reprints.
Be interesting.
Yeah. And Two-Headed Giant's interesting too. I'm kind of glad they're supporting that. I'm not sure I would want that all the time, but for a one-off fun draft set in the summer, that should be cool.
Oh yeah.
And it'll be up before Vegas too, so I would assume we can get a couple events at Vegas as well of that.
That'd be great.
So that's really the only news we've had.
We have the Commander Anthology 2 announcement
No, that's true. I forgot about that.
this week. So the 4 decks are Atraxa,
Surprise!
Yeah, exactly.
Daretti from C14.
Oh, yep.
The
Planeswalker
mono red
Planeswalker,
Planeswalker deck. The red white experience deck, the Anya Giant
Anya
deck.
and Kalemny,
Yep.
which are both bad commanders, but there was good value in that deck. It has like sort of
It has Blade of Selves.
Blade
It
of
has
Selves.
Command Beacon. Like those two alone are like $30 together.
I think Urza's
Incubator,
Incubator might have been in there,
yep. And the final one is Mimeoplasm.
which is one of your original set ones
yep.
that also had.
That Muldrotha is just better. Oh
Yeah.
yes, I totally said that.
Muldrotha is better. Atraxa is even better compared to
Yeah.
Mimeoplasm.
I'm just saying same exact colors.
Almost. You get the
You're-
extra one
yeah.
with
Yeah.
Atraxa.
Are either of you two looking to pick that up this time?
No.
I actually am. For a few reasons. I want the life counters.
Life counters are really nice. I like those.
Second, all those cards are in foil with the new legend border.
And the new border looks great on Sculptor Ire. Was one of the ones I saw.
Yeah. So having a foil Atraxa in the new border
That's cool.
will be unique.
That is
And
pretty
that's
spicy.
kind of what I want.
I had the Atraxa deck. I had the Daretti deck. And the Kalemny deck actually I had too. So like the only one I didn't get was the Mimeoplasm deck, and I'm like, I don't need to pick them up again. But I'm glad they're reprinting them. That's good.
Yep.
Not everyone had a chance to get them. So
And the foil Daretti has slots in another deck of mine anyways, so I'll
Okay.
just swap it out.
yeah,
No.
and Daretti's a great card.
Because knowing me, if I bought it, it would end up on my shelf where all my other sealed product ends up going and never gets opened.
I've got plenty of that. I'm looking. I'm actually looking at a shelf of Max's sealed product right here as we're recording this.
Just a From the Vault and a couple dual decks.
That's
Speaking
true.
of
It's not
that,
bad.
that from the vault, I really need that Sarah Angel out of there for my collection. It almost completes my collection.
Well, I think I
But
might
I
have
also
to.
want to burn that card at the same time because it's the worst art ever made for Sarah Angel.
I 100% agree with you.
That was not great
we,
art.
we may have to bust it open for Traxable, so if we do, I will let you know.
Oh yeah, Angel Tribal. That's got a lot of gas in there for
Yep.
us. Okay, so I believe that's it for news.
That is all I have for news.
All right, social media is next. Let's check out what's going on there.
We had quite a bit of stuff actually. Heard from quite a few people.
Yeah, we had a lot of stuff going on.
The big one that we wanted to touch on was from someone by the name. I'm assuming this isn't a real name. If it is, that is awesome. We got Bowen Arrow. Pretty much, I'm just gonna summarize this because it was a really long message that we received. They just said, thanks for what we do, all that fun jazz. But then came into the point of when we were talking about breaking the bank.
Yep.
And he wanted to know if he was that guy who was buying the game.
Okay.
Because he has, he's a well-off person, spent, like his tax return, got a set of duels, that kind of stuff. And he was worried if that was what he was doing.
I don't think so. I think it depends on the deck you're building. Okay, so like, let's say you sit down and you go to EDH Rec, or you go to MTG Salvation or something, and you type best deck in EDH, and you find someone's list or something. And I know, for example, the one I always look at on MTG Salvation is there's a Kozilek deck that a guy's put together, and I don't have his name. We'll throw a link in the show notes. And the deck is called Butcher with Juice, because it's Kozilek, Butcher of Truths, and he calls it Butcher with Juice. And the whole purpose of the deck
I
is...
hope that card is altered where it causes like
I don't
holding a like a jug of orange juice.
It's a Vitamix, and you
He
see him
does-
like
he-
shoving.
He has the juice, orange juice logo that's like altered on all the posts he uses.
Yes.
I'll post a link to it. I've forgotten his name and I apologize, but I'll put the link up for the deck. Anyway, it artifact ramps out to Kozilek, but Kozilek isn't really the win condition. Kozilek is just there to draw him cards, and then he often sacrifices it and can recast it multiple times in a turn just to get the redraws off Kozilek. And it's supposedly a ridiculously strong deck, and he's constantly like updating the tweaks he made. So let's say you find that deck and you're like, oh, I'm just going to go buy out that Kozilek deck and pick up things like the Mishra's Workshop for it. And I mean, that right there is going to be more expensive than most people's decks.
Yep.
I think he's got a Tabernacle in it. I mean, it's an insane deck. Then yes, you're buying your way into the game, right? But if you've just created a cool deck and you happen to have the money to buy the cards for it, good on you.
Yeah,
I
not
mean,
to mention it's an investment in your future. I mean, from when we heard from him, all he said was that he bought the duels.
right? Yeah,
It's not like you're going out and buying $10,000 worth of cards just to show off to everyone that you play with.
right.
Exactly. I totally agree. I mean, a dual land, yeah, it's great. Is it much better than a shock land? Yes, but if you can only afford a shock land, you're getting the same thing out of it, essentially.
And you just don't feel bad because you've done well enough to afford that stuff. As long as you're like playing like a decent person and not just trying to pub stomp people,
Yeah, there are a
it is
few.
what it is.
There are a few people that I play with, and I won't name names, that buy a top tier deck,
Sure.
have good success with it one day, and then crappy success with it the next day, and all they do is they complain about it the whole time.
Because
those are the
just buy
people-
the win.
Yeah, those are the people that I don't like to play
Yeah,
with.
I didn't get the impression he was doing that.
No, me
just-
neither.
Yeah.
No.
You've got nice cards. That's perfectly fine. Understand not everyone does, and bear that in mind when you're playing games.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I don't think that's a problem at all. Was there anything else worth? I've got actually one thing I want to touch on here quickly. This was a comment, and I was going to write a long response to it on one of my decks and tapped out, and I'm just going to say it here. I don't even know if the person's a listener, but I thought it was worth addressing because it's an interesting point. It was Melda on Tapped Out wrote in response to my Veil of the Nightclad deck. Your black decks tend to run Ancient Craving, Ambition's Cost, Night's Whisper, Sign in Blood, and Read the Bones. Why? All don't check multiple boxes and other draw effects do. And then he/she suggested Morbid Curiosity as a replacement. So first of all, I'll say not all my decks do. My Glissa deck doesn't have any of those draw spells, and I think I have at least one more that doesn't. However, I like them because they're consistent, at least for me.
The fact that they don't have an extra criteria to
Right.
use them.
Like Morbid Curiosity, for example, the suggestion it's 1 black, and you sacrifice an artifact or creature and draw cards equal to the converted mana cost of the permanent.
I think that's from Aether Revolt.
I believe so, yeah. And that's a cool card. Like, that's a good card, except for it doesn't do me any good maybe on turn 3.
When you sack a Soul Ring.
Right. I'm not going to do that.
No.
I want to I would rather lose a couple life and be able to cast that card on turn 2 or turn 3, because that's where I love Night's Whisper. When you hit that turn 3, when you kept a 3-land hand and you haven't drawn one, like, I want to make sure I can do something on turn 4. I want to have that land in hand to play it and then do something with those 4 mana. Whereas when you're playing something like Morbid Curiosity, you can't do that.
Right.
So I love those black ones, even though they cost you life. I know exactly what I'm getting consistently every single time.
Yep.
So
And-
that's a big deal for me when I play.
And we've discussed this time after time on the show. We all are very aggressive with our life totals
Yes.
in our meta. And kind of it's just our play style in general. We in EDH you have 40 life. You can spare between all 3 or 4 of those cards, you're sparing 10 life maybe total?
I would say aggressive bordering on reckless. I'm not sure which, and it goes back and forth depending on the day, but for sure.
Yeah.
Until you see a Voltron player sit down. Then you're like, we're going to go a little bit more lenient on the life total today.
That's what commander damage is for.
Exactly.
We don't need that. What are you talking about?
I did like that someone asked, who was it? Sheldon, about the commander damage. I heard you guys were talking about roofing commander damage. He's like, the first I heard about it was on Command Zone.
Not happening.
So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's, I guess, not nothing that's sure what you're talking about right now. Anything else, Max, we want to talk about here?
Yeah, as we mentioned last week, you can now find us on our home at flipsidegaming.com. We are on their video and their podcast page starting this week. And of course, if you use the code CMDR when you purchase any cards, sealed products, accessories, as long as your order is $10 or more, you're going to get 10% off that order. So help us by supporting the show by ordering through Flipside Gaming. I've ordered from them. Dana's ordered from them.
I actually made a second order I'll mention here briefly as a shout out to them. I wanted to pick up a Phyrexian tower for that Vela deck I mentioned. I wanted some kind of a sack outlet, and I didn't have a Phyrexian tower. So I was like, okay, well, let me look online, see what the best price I can find. And I'm like, I might as well check Flipside. I'll check Flipside as well. This was actually even technically before the code went live.
Before we told everybody
Before
about
we told
the code.
everybody about the code. So I looked online, and they literally had the best price for a, it wasn't near mint.
SP?
Yeah. As for an SP Phyrexian tower, they had the best price by like $4 or $5, and that was before I did the 10% off code.
Very nice.
So we're not like pimping them out just for the
kickback
we get. Like that was generally the best deal I could find online before I knocked 10% off, and then. So I ordered the card, and then yesterday I wasn't really thinking anything of it, and I get an email yesterday morning saying your package is out for delivery about the Phyrexian tower, and then I got another one at like 2:00 saying your package has been delivered. I wasn't gonna go home after work because it's in the opposite direction of the card store, but I'm like, yeah, I'll go home and get my card and put it in the deck so I can actually run it. Yeah, I've been very happy with them. I'm 2 purchases deep so far, and I've been really happy.
I might have to order some. I don't order much online, so
Right.
But
But-
I am one of those paranoid conspiracy people that I do not like putting my information online at all.
And you should be, because we have cameras all over your house.
That's fine. I'm terribly sorry
It's
for all the things you
disturbing.
guys have to watch.
So disturbing.
I like it.
Ooh. Is that buzzing noise I hear when I'm sleeping?
Exactly.
The camera's.
No, that's just me hovering over you.
In the ductwork.
Oh.
So where else can we be found online, Chris?
Oh, we can be found online. Let's see here now. Let's count this out. We go 1 cookie, 2 cookie. No, we're not going to go that far. You can find us on Twitter at CMDR Central. Facebook, search us CMDR Central. YouTube, search us CMDR Central. And online at cmdrcentral.com.
And of course, we are on Patreon by searching CMDR Central as well. And we want to give a shout out to our newest Patreon, Heart of Tanks. So thank you for pledging to the show, and I apologize I have not gotten you your Slack invite yet, and that will be happening right after we stop recording tonight.
All right, good deal. We also probably should use this time to talk about our next giveaway.
2,
2 giveaways. That's right. We're doing 2 this time.
because we're awesome.
That's right. We are awesome.
I was not made aware of this. What is going
Yeah.
on?
Oh,
no.
so this-
I knew about
yeah,
that.
you definitely knew about. We talked about the one last night. Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, did I not? No, I talked. You gave me a card. Okay, so the first one we'll talk about. This will function similar to the Bonfire and Sunday contest.
Which, pause, everybody else in the Commander podcast universe jumped on our bandwagon.
I've seen like 3 different shows giving them away this week.
Yes. So, we did it first.
We announced it a long time ago, and ours are sent out in the mail already, I believe.
Mine is going out tomorrow.
Okay, Max and I each sent one out, and I did mine today. Max is doing his tomorrow.
Mine's going to Canada, so there's some paperwork.
Okay, so yeah, it's got to go by Moose,
Yep.
as per usual.
Still CCO people.
No, it's
It
not.
wasn't.
It's Braden.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Brady Green Niece. Okay, so the first one will function like that, and we're going to use the hashtag CMDR Central 2017.
Okay.
Isn't it
And the-
2018?
Well, the reason why we're doing 2017 is because we're giving away 3 cards, 3 of our favorite cards from the year 2017.
Standard sets
Ooh.
of
Standard
27.
sets, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got a Rishkar's Expertise, a Mirage Mirror, and a Scavenger Grounds. All of which were
What?
cards we've talked about a lot and talked about a lot last year in particular.
And one card that specifically hosed me over and over last night was
Yes,
Mirage Mirror.
Yeah, it was. And now we'll do
We'll get
games
to
we
that.
played lax, and we'll talk about that Mirage Mirror situation. Anyway, we'll put that information on Twitter and in the usual places about the hashtag and what you can do to get in that contest. The second contest is going to be for people on
Patreon only.
yes.
We are going to be giving away to all Patreons who are either current Patreons or become a Patreon by June 1st, because that's
Yes.
when the next billing cycle happens.
Yep.
A chance to win a budget-ish version of the Marin Rat Colony deck we discussed 2 weeks ago.
And since Patrick's cards are actually in storage, and he was talking about not being able to get to them, you might actually get to play a Marin Rat Colony deck before he gets a chance to.
Right.
And we say budget-ish, but like Chris has already given me a Phyrexian Arena for it. I've got a Marin.
I was gonna say I have a Marin. I'm sure I have some of the other cards. So
it's not going to have
no Bayou.
No Bayou.
Sorry, everybody.
We ain't going that far, and we'll sleeve it up and put it in. We'll double sleeve it up. How about that?
I'm
we'll
more
put it in a
willing to
nice deck
send
box.
you guys the Life Gain tap lands, the Guild Gates. We can do that.
Yeah.
rather.
Well, yeah.
Maybe we'll put the Overgrown Tomb in there. That might be the most expensive land in
we'll
the
see.
deck.
We'll put it'll be a really like readily playable deck that's as close as we can get to Patrick's Marin deck without putting a Bayou in it, like we said. So that will be for people that are patrons of ours by June 1st. That goes out to one of those lucky folk.
Yes. So anybody that is, like I said, anybody that is a current Patreon or becomes a Patreon by June 1st will be entered in the drawing. And I think closer to June 1st, we'll announce the levels of entries. I don't know if we're just going to do a flat everybody gets one or the tiers get maybe an extra entry. We're not sure yet.
And we'll get a copy of that deck list out there before then too. Because we haven't got even the deck list together. We just started talking about this yesterday essentially. So
pretty much.
So anyway.
We're doing it my way of deck building. Just
Right.
get a whole bunch of random cards together and be like,
shuffle them up.
okay, what can we do here?
This is almost your way of Magic in general. We were talking before Dana showed up. I'm like, are you playing in the PPTQ on Saturday? And Chris goes, I don't know. I'll probably decide at like 2 a.m. and be like, yep, I'll do it.
I'll get the shop last night, and he's like, I'm taking apart Blue Moon.
Yep.
Sad.
Well, you're building Eldrazi now.
I have Eldrazi.
Okay.
I've had it built for like 6 months, so
You did pretty well with that in Milwaukee.
I did.
All right. So that, I think, is it for social media stuff.
Yes.
All right. Max is counting here, making sure he hit all his bullet points. Games we played since I was actually at the shop for the first time in a couple weeks last night.
And so were the doctors.
The doctors were there as well, and actually asked if we were going to mention them in the show because they haven't had any shout-outs lately. So
I
there you
asked
go,
them-
Well, of
boys.
course they ain't getting shout-outs.
They
I
weren't
mean,
there.
they only come when you come. I mean, it's almost like they don't like Max and I.
They did have legitimate reasons. One was that Steve was like, "Oh, I've been in Minneapolis doing."
Mike's been in Minneapolis in an
Mike.
rotation at a children's hospital or something, and Steve's just been in an ER rotation here in town.
So I guess working in the ER is probably a legitimate reason to not show up to BDH night. It's better than my excuse, which was like I had to go to a concert, a junior high band concert, and I had to clean my roof. So those are much better reasons. So we played a couple good games. I want to hear about Max's
Oh, Lordy.
game because he's got a card he's particularly annoyed at here.
I am extremely annoyed at the card Burnout.
Which you, dear listener, don't know what it is because why would you?
All I know is that it is 1 in a red for an instant that says counter target blue interrupt spell, which has been eroded to counter target blue instant spell. Draw a card.
So it's like a bad
Red Elemental.
or red Elemental Blast or Pyroblast. I guess you get to draw a card, but it's so much worse than either of those two. But nonetheless, you lost the game because of
I
it.
did lose a game. I was playing with the doctors and another person, and I'm sorry I do not remember your name, and I don't even know if you listen to our show. And that third person, who I don't know his name, we'll call him Bob, because that's totally not right, but that's what we're going to use. Bob, this was our second game in this pod, and Bob whipped out a Narset deck. And I jumped to the last time I faced a Narset deck was at SCG Milwaukee against one of our viewers.
You had like PTSD about it.
Yeah, and I literally I shoot up. I walk over to Dana and I said, "Do you have the Master Sword with you?" Because that's what I call Edric. I'm like, "It's the Master Sword. It's his best deck." He goes, "Yeah, here you go." Hands it to me, and I'm getting off to a fast pace. I'm winning, and I get the Narset player down to pretty much next turn is lethal to him, and Mike was playing his Aurelia deck, and he was going to swing. He hit me once with Aurelia, and he went to do the second time. I'm like, okay, hold up. I'm going to overload Rift. Because I had a Gaia's Cradle out. I crop rotationed on turn 2 for Gaia's Cradle, because I had like 4 guys on the field already. Because my first creature was Cloud of Fairies.
I was just trying to buy yourself into a win.
Yep, exactly, Dana. And I'm like, I'm going to overload Rift, and Mike's like, ha! Burnout. I'm like, what does that do?
That's not a real card. You're just making up words.
Mike, this looks like your kid drew it. He's like, I counter it. I'm like, what? You can't do that in Boros? He goes, yeah, I can. And because I couldn't rift, I didn't have blockers for Mike's next turn and Steve's next turn to eventually kill me. I actually put myself at 3 by cracking a Misty Rainforest just so anything would kill me. And then the Narset Bob ended up winning because he was playing Narset Super Friends and just
took the game over.
took the game over. Yeah. And I looked at Mike and Steve and I'm like, you should have let me kill him. I told you.
And next time they probably were like,
yeah,
it's Narset.
I blew every counter spell, I think, in that deck except for Force of Will, Impact, and Negation.
So
stopping Narset. I delayed Narset on turn 5.
Nice.
And I'm like, okay, I have 4 turns to kill you.
That should have bought enough time, but
he blew up my Beastmaster Ascension, and I would have been able to do it because it was like 25. 2 turns. He took 1 attempt from it, and then the next turn when I went to attack, he killed it. So my creatures lost the bonus.
So Max is now collecting burnouts. So send all your
No.
copies in.
No. Although time-stamped Megantic Slivers, I will take
Always.
all the time.
All right. Chris didn't play any games last night.
I'm still just like my mind's trying to swirl around this burnout right now.
Thank you. This is all I've been doing today.
When there are 2 cards that do the exact same thing but are
way better. Way better. Because they'll destroy permanents too, right? They'll hit a blue permanent too, and they'll hit any blue spell. It's not just
yeah, it's not. Who played this?
Mike.
And I've told him about I'm like, there's other 2 spells that are much better, and he's like, yeah, it's fine.
He actually blamed you for playing. He goes, Dana told me to play this. I'm like,
I should not tell him to play that one.
I'm like, I don't think there's enough cards, but I'm pretty sure this would be an in the margins if there were.
Yeah. There we go. In the margins burnout I'm going to do.
This is what's
and
better.
Like, what? You're like, what? Who's running that?
It's a short article. It's 2 cards.
I would be shocked if it was in 20 decks in EDH Rack.
Oh, now I have to look.
We'll take a little pause here and look this up.
What was your guess?
I said I would be shocked if it was in 20.
175
really?
decks.
I'm wow. Yeah, consider me surprised.
The top commanders are Grenzo, Jaya, Ballard, Taskmage, and Angry Omnath. Those are the top 3 commanders.
Okay, I can see this in a Jaya Ballard deck for the simple fact of the flavor text on it says "Gotcha" in
Jaya.
capital letters, and then it says Jaya Ballard Task.
Okay, so it's a flavor. Okay,
yes.
I get it there. That makes sense.
Blake had a Jaya Ballard themed deck. Every card somehow mentioned her.
Yeah, I can see that if it's flavor wise. But
still,
the other 2 are so much. Unless you're playing all 3.
Maybe, I guess.
And if you're in mono red, you have to.
And if you're playing against, like, maybe your best friend you're playing against is playing mono blue, and you just want every counter blue spell you can in red, maybe.
I know someone who plays mono blue, Tribal Jace. Maybe I'll build mono red, hate blue.
There you go.
With the
and run burnout.
I'm going to run burnout.
Ruin his night as well.
I'm going to gamble for it on turn 1.
One card I was very impressed with in Max's deck, I played a game against him and your Tajik deck.
Oh, yes.
And Traxos Scourge of Krug was a monster in that deck.
Because
I wasn't thinking in terms of, I was thinking in terms of needing to play the spell to untap it during your next turn to attack again. Like, you were just untapping it just constantly just to give it some of my vigilance.
Yeah, I would
always available.
I would swing in with it and then, okay, Soul Ring. Like, I would save a Soul Ring for my second main phase just to untap Traxos, who had a Sword of Vengeance on him. So I'm like, okay, I'll untap a 10/7.
But you never didn't have
something on it.
Something that you could untap it with, too.
Right.
Yeah, that did a lot of work in that game.
I definitely think if I were going to build a colorless commander, which I've always thought about doing, because I have a whole bunch of planes or wastes, but it would have to be Traxos. I really think, 4 mana, 7/7.
With Trample.
Yeah.
So good.
So, yeah, that was a lot to deal with. That was fun to see. I got Multani out, the new Multani in my Reki deck, who's just a beater. Because he was like a 14-14 or something
14-14, 17-17, because you also had Azusa out, so every turn you're dropping 5 lands.
And then Galta's like, I might as well play Galta too for 2 mana then at that point. So yeah, Multani was a lot of fun. And I had a Kamal's Druidic Vow in my hand, and I was ready to cast it, but I think you wheeled or something.
I did wheel.
So I get a chance to cast that. I played my Veil of the Nightclad deck. I mentioned that, and I got to cast the Antiquities War in there, which is a new card out of Dominaria that I liked. That did really nice work for me. I was happy with that. And I was going to cast Phyrexian Scriptures, and for some reason, I don't know if I died or somebody else died, but I was in a position where that was going to be a good cast too. That was against your Tajik deck, I think, and everybody else would have lost their board, and I would have kept mine, and Max would have kept a few equipment.
So how have you guys played any of the other sagas?
One more I played that came out in my Tesa deck, Rite of Belzenog,
Okay.
which is one that puts in 2 tokens and then 2 tokens again, and then makes the 6/6 demon that you have to sacrifice a
Yep.
creature to. That was amazing in that deck. But I don't know how well it would work in other decks. But that's a deck where I want to sacrifice stuff to do things, and I want to sacrifice tokens. So it was, but that was great. I cast it, and that felt
Okay.
like a bomb in that.
I was
deck.
curious how the sagas would play in Commander.
But the ones I've played have all been good. I've had 3 of them out, and they've all played really, really well.
I don't run a single one yet.
No,
None of
Wh-
my decks really.
The one
work
that I
for 'em.
want is extremely expensive,
Right.
so I'm just gonna wait for it to drop.
oh, the white one,
Yep.
History of Benalia.
Yep.
Which doesn't look great on paper, but it's a bomb in Standard so far. And I also got to, I posted a picture of this last night. I got to use Mirage Mirror.
Dirty card.
First of all, I got to use it constantly. Like whenever someone tried to remove it,
I'll turn it into a land. I'll turn it into an enchantment. I'll turn it. Oh, I'll make it an aura shards to blow up your aura shards.
yeah, that was the best. Turning it into an Aura Shards, playing a creature, and destroying the other Aura Shards. That felt good. You Wrath, I turned into an Avacyn to make myself
Yep.
indestructible.
I tried to remove it, and you turned it into a land, so I couldn't remove it.
I mean, it was just a cockroach. You just could not kill. It just stayed there forever.
I think I called it the modern day top.
Divining Top, because it can go in every deck. It can go in every
It
deck.
can go in every deck, and if you make it a land, half the time it won't die.
So that was really strong on there. But the play I got to do was I got to copy Atali Primal Storm with Mirage Mirror and swing. And the 3 cards I got were an Elish Norn, an Iris, God of Victory, and Zakama, Primal Calamity. Which is insane. That's like I mean, now Max Wrath the next turn, so I didn't get to do much with him.
Right.
But I got to untap my lands, and I got to grab the 3 beater creatures and keep like
You killed some of the board with that Elish Norn.
I did, and the Zakama was something that the Dinosaur player had tutored to the top of his library. So that was going to be something we were going to have to face the next turn. So I got rid of that essentially as well.
That's why you don't tutor until you know that you're going to draw that card.
It was
On a stick.
Is
Like,
the dinosaur one that makes or the shaman that lets you get a dinosaur to the top of your library or whatever
Okay.
it was. So he had to do it in his turn, but so that felt great, like being like, wow, I just got like literally probably the 3 biggest creatures in all 3 of those decks.
right. Before we move on to your last game, can we discuss my Dromoka dilemma?
Yeah, let's touch on that quick.
Okay. So as everybody knows, I have a Dragon Lord Dromoka flying tribal deck.
Stelznia sucks.
Aren't you playing that in standard?
Shh.
Didn't you get crushed by blue-white control last night?
No, I crushed blue-white
Oh,
control,
did
so
you?
don't give me that.
The one game I saw, you were on the bottom end of the life totals.
Oh yeah, that one game that he hit like perfect removal. Game 3, I crushed him back. Shillelagh for the win.
Nice. The past few weeks when I've played this deck, I end up getting extremely flooded in my draws with lands. So I currently run 37 lands in that deck. And so I'm considering making the following changes, and I want to see what our listeners and you guys even think. The first one is I'm going to cut a Plains for a Winding Canyons. And Winding Canyons allows you to tap 2 and it to allow you to play creatures with as if they had flash.
So it's like Alchemist Refuge, but it's colorless.
My thought process behind that is, okay, 2 mana plus whatever else to drop a 4/4 flyer on your end step so I can swing with it right away is great. And I have tons of land. I have tons of stuff to get that, to be able to use it. I don't think it's going to be a dead card.
You can also get to that point, like the thing with Dromoka is we can't kill Dromoka on your turn, but on our turns we can. But if you wait until the end step of someone else's turn and then cast Dromoka, you've removed 95% of the chances to actually kill
Yep.
the card. Unless you have an instant in hand and have mana free, you can't kill the Dromoka. Then on his turn, you get a free swing.
Yep. It's also another pseudo Hall of the Bandit Lord.
Right. Yep.
If I can flash in Dromoka for the first time or something. I mean, it might mean delaying a couple turns, but whatever. I'll do it to get in commander damage right away.
And it taps for a mana if you need to. So it's
Right.
not like you're down a mana there necessarily.
My second option that I want to try is I want to remove another basic land for a Mana Vault. Because a lot of my creatures have 2 or 3 colorless symbols in their casting costs. And it's just a quick turn 1 mana rock.
So you're going from 37 land
To
down
35.
to 36. So technically, because that Winding
Yep.
Canyons is a land.
To 36.
And the one non-land card you're adding is a 1-drop. That's about as perfect of a transition down. 36 lands, I've started to move down a little bit in my decks. 2 colors can support 36 lands. You've got a ton of ramp in that deck, too.
I do. I run, let's see, just in ramp spells, I run Cultivate, Farseek, Nature's Lore, Kodama's Reach, Rampant Growth, Skyshroud Claim, and I've considered adding Crop Rotation, specifically for Winding Canyons, our Hall of the Bandit Lord.
No explosive vegetation?
No, that got cut. It did not make the margins.
Nice. See, my wisdom. That's what I'm bringing to this group.
I cut that
I'm
long
gonna
before
bring
you.
up a card every
I
time
know.
you do one
It
of
was
those. I'm
canceled
gonna bring
last
up the
week. I
card.
laughed at that.
I cut that long before that article came out.
I think that sounds perfectly reasonable for that deck. I think 36 lands is fine.
You should change them all to snow-covered lands and run scrying sheets.
No.
I don't think you have enough basics to support scrying.
I run
sheets.
16 basics right now.
That's a good amount. But yeah, but the odds of you seeing one on the top of your library are pretty slim at
Right.
16.
Just the way that he said he keeps getting flooded, and it seems to be like a consistent thing. Scrying sheets let you look at the top card of your
Right.
deck, and if it is a land, you reveal, or snow permanent, you reveal it and put it into your hand.
Yeah. That seems too cute in your words, Chris. Like,
It is.
if
cute.
it's only doing it for the lands, like if I had a couple other snow permanents, maybe, but I don't.
I actually have debated taking scrying sheets out of my Recce deck. Because I tend to not have mana free, and I don't. It's not like a draw go deck, so there's not many instants in the deck.
Yeah, that's
either.
an aggro deck. You don't want to. Yeah.
So I'm probably gonna take it out. I was thinking about replacing it with Mouth of Ronan.
Ooh, that's a good one. 4 colorless and a snow.
Yep.
Tap, sacrifice, deal 4 damage to target creature.
Give a creature -4/-4, or is it 4 damage?
4
I think
damage.
4 damage. Okay. But I mean, there's not a lot of direct damage spells in green, so I think
Yep.
that might be more useful to me than the scrying sheets that I just never have mana free to use. So I think I'm gonna give that a go. But Max would appreciate any feedback from any of our
Yes.
listeners on his
Yes.
thoughts on his Dromoka
Yes.
changes.
Let us know on Twitter, either by tweeting the show directly, or you can tweet me at cranman2127, or Facebook message us, email us, all that fun stuff. Or if you're a Patreon, you can message us there too.
All right. The last game I will mention really quickly, just because it segues into the show topic, was I played a Teysa deck against. It was a 4-player game, but it wound up with myself against a Shillelagh deck,
Shillelagh, woo!
and we couldn't end it. It went on for close to 2 hours because he had riot control, which you draw. You gain life equal to number of creatures your opponents control, and it fogs. But it's a token deck, that Teysa deck essentially. So like there were multiple times I had like 80 creatures in play, and he would riot control and gain 80 life, and I'd do no damage, and then I'd swing for 2 turns at him to get him back down to like 30 or 20 and be in killing blow range, and he'd somehow recur the riot control with Eternal Witness, and then one time he Sun Titan the Eternal Witness back into play to get the riot control, and he regrowthed it, and I mean it was absurd. So I finally had to get down to the point where I was able to draw deep because I had Grim Haruspex out, and I had Nether Trader in play, which you can recast from your graveyard for 1 black mana if a creature goes into the graveyard. So I was able to like combo with Anointed Procession where I could sacrifice a creature to bring it back, sacrifice the Nether Shadow or Nether Trader to make 2 tokens from Anointed Procession and Teysa. It was like a 9-card combo I finally got with Blasting Station to just grind him down from like 150 life to none in 1 turn. So speaking of tokens, and that's going to be kind of my segue into talking about tokens here. That's this show for today. First, though, I'm going to ask you guys a little trivia question.
Ooh.
There is 1 card from Alpha. So Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, Revised. But it was in Alpha originally that makes tokens or references tokens. Just 1. And it's been reprinted a few times. And it's not good. But do either of you two have a guess about what that is?
Ugh. If I had to guess, it's something with goblins.
It's an artifact.
It has to be with goblins.
The card is the Hive.
Oh, dirt. I should have guessed something like that. I was thinking about that. I was listening to a thing with Cedric Phillips and Patrick Sullivan, and they were talking about the Hive.
I remember at the time it was like a unique thing, like it makes a what? And then Arabian Nights had 2. Bottle of Suleiman that you like flip a coin and sack it and it makes a 5/5 Jin, and Rook Egg, which is like a 0/3, and when it dies it turns into a 5/5 dragon or a 4/4 dragon or something. And then Antiquities had Tetravus, and then by Legends there was like 3 or 4 token cards per set, and it just kind of ramped up from there.
Yep.
So first things first, are either of you guys playing any token decks in your current rotation
Like strictly token decks?
that you think is at least a sub, right?
Like-
that you would call at least like a sub theme part of the deck?
No.
You have nothing that's like maybe like one card that accidentally makes a few tokens.
I have maybe 1 or 2 cards in every deck that accidentally makes
Okay.
tokens.
How about you, Chris? Alesha's kind of a token.
I was gonna
It's pretty
say
close.
when Max is like strictly tokens, because
Yeah.
I'm like that was my exact wording too. It's Alesha. I would consider a reanimating token deck.
It's a sub theme in that.
Yeah,
deck, for
Toker. I
sure.
like it.
Toker.
Toker.
deck, yeah. And I've got 2, and neither of them are like what you would call a traditional token deck. My Talran deck is a token deck.
Yep.
But it's revolving around cantripping stuff. It's not like your traditional, well, at least what I think of as a token deck. And then my Tesa deck obviously is 2, but it's also a weirder deck because you're sacrificing stuff, and I'm trying to loop bad graveyard creatures to make stuff. But they're both token decks. That's how those decks win pretty much.
Yes.
So since 2 of the 3 of us at least have token decks, Max, you should.
I have one up
In your
here in
head?
my head that I actually have been thinking about when we decided to do this show.
Who's the commander?
We'll get to that in a little bit.
Oh, all right, okay.
Ooh.
So what do tokens add to the game of Magic? Like, what do they bring that other things don't?
Headaches.
They do bring. They absolutely do bring headaches, particularly with Catherine's Crusade in the field.
Yeah.
So I'm going to relate this to something in the real world.
All right.
Uh-oh.
Tokens are like a beehive. You poke them and make them mad, and they swarm you.
They absolutely do. That is good. I like that. So you can run Hornet Nest.
Yes.
in your token deck and make some Hornet tokens.
That's great.
Or the Hive, if you want to run
The
a really
Hive.
terrible token generator.
Tokens are a slow-moving train, in my opinion. Like, they take a while to get going, but once it's at full bore, you need to figure out a way to stop it, or else you're going to get run over fast.
It's also easy to dismiss. You're like, oh, it's just there's just like 2 tokens out. There's 4
Just a
tokens.
little
Just a
1/1.
little 1/1, right? Yeah. Right. But it's easy to
Wait.
do that. Like even when you know better, it's easy to be like, oh, I got a few turns. I'm fine. It's not a big deal. And then it gets out of control quickly.
Yes, extremely quickly.
So the one thing I have in my notes here is tokens let you go wider than the cards in hand would have let you go.
Yep.
Like I had 175 bodies in the field at one point in time last night, or 170. Like we quit counting. We were like rounding numbers off because it was too annoying. And you just can't do that unless you're playing with tokens. There's not enough cards in your library to make 175 creatures in play, but you can absolutely do it with tokens. So it kind of lets you break the rules of the game in a way by putting things in the field that you couldn't do otherwise.
Totally agree with that.
And I think it also it enables some strategies maybe that you couldn't do. Like Stacks really relies on tokens because you're producing more things to give up when you're sacrificing than your opponents can when they're not playing with tokens.
Yeah, because most cards that create a token, like instant sorcery, they create 2 for 1 spell.
Yeah, a lot of
So
times
you're
for
getting
sure.
2 for 1s, and then you only need 1 of them to sack off for
You're
a
turning
stack
your one
stack,
card
and-
into 3 things.
Yep.
Sacrificing 1, or everyone else has to lose their big beater creature.
Yep.
So tokens do bring a lot to the game, and I have a note just for this one card, Skull Clamp.
Ooh,
I
so
mean,
good.
Oh, yeah.
Not that it isn't good like with other things, but like there's so many times when I've seen somebody like, okay, I've got 3 tokens in play. I'm going to spend 3 mana to draw 6 cards because of Skull Clamp. I mean, it's a great card, but tokens make it insane. So how do token decks win? Like, what are your win conditions you mostly see when someone's playing tokens?
Just mass numbers. Like, yeah, if you're facing down 4 1/1s against your 4 4/4s, yeah, that's good. But next turn, they're going to have 16 1/1s or 100 1/1s, and
Right.
you're dead.
They just go wider than you can
Yeah,
possibly
they
ever deal
make
with.
more bodies faster than you can make bodies in your deck half the time.
Agreed. There's a wonderful mechanic that was printed in, I do believe, Shadows over Innistrad called Skulk,
Yes.
because most tokens are 1/1s,
Yeah.
and creatures with power less than or greater than their power can't block them.
Yep.
So you can just come through and just be like, hiya, hiya, hiya.
And there's behind the scenes.
Yep.
Which is black and white or black green? Black white, I think.
Black, white, black casting cost, white activate ability.
You know, I should really think of that actually in my Tesa deck to make all those tokens unblockable. Oh, I should look at that. I'll. Have to
I think it's
consider
only like
that.
a 2-mana enchantment too. So
Yeah, it's 2 mana. You can pump the toughness on your creatures for like 5, but no one does that unless you're Doran maybe. That's a great card in Doran too.
Oh, it's a gross card in Doran.
Skulk is too though, so
Yeah. You see a lot of anthems in token decks. I would say more than you see in other decks.
I agree with that. It's more just the generic creature tokens get XX.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of like the coat of arms because most token decks, especially when you get into like the 2 or 3 color, they aren't specifically soldiers. They're not specifically elves. You know, if you look at it like a Gave deck, you're making Saproings, you're making spirits, you're making
Elves are making zombies.
all
you're
these
making-
different
right,
creature types where coat of arms or Door of Destinies isn't going to do you much
Right.
in the long game.
But you do have stuff like Dictative Heliod, which gives all creatures +2/+2. And if you've got 10 or 12 creatures in the floor,
Yeah.
waiting to swing on the opponent, it's like, oh, I can take 12 damage. Who cares? Suddenly that's 36 damage from the 12 if you could drop Dictative Heliod.
Intangible Virtue gives them all +1/+1 in Vigilance.
Intangible Virtue, I remember cracking that card in a pack and immediately being like, well, that's okay, it's fine, but who cares? Intangible Virtue is a pain to deal with in a good token deck. I mean, having those tokens be able to swing untouched
Yep.
and get stronger, you don't realize how good that is until you have to deal with it. Overruns, I mean, they're good with elves and stuff, but like the difference between an elf and a 1/1 spirit token, it's the same thing. It does the same exact thing.
The best overrun in a token deck is Craterhoof Behemoth.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, Overrun itself does work. Overwhelming Stampede does good work. I mean, like Overwhelming Stampede is a little bit worse because it cares about the creatures, and it needs a big enough creature to give it +1 +X. But Overrun, just giving them +3/+3 wins games.
Yeah, well, even if you have like a 4/4 creature on the field with a whole bunch of 1/1s and you play Overwhelming Stampede and they all get +4/+4.
Yeah,
it's-
that's
And
enough.
Trample.
yeah,
yeah.
if you have 20 of them, you're just like,
Yeah.
okay, who's going to live this? I don't know.
Max mentioned this with my Edric deck before, but Beastmaster Ascension
Yes.
wins games in token decks so often, particularly because you don't need people play it wrong. I've seen it before with someone who's kind of a newer player, and they play Beastmaster Ascension on like turn 4, and want to attack with 2 creatures and attack with 2 creatures, and then like 4 turns later have it turned on. In a good token deck, you just drop it when no one's ready.
Yep.
And the 7 counters go on it when you swing, because you've got 7 or 8 or 10 or 12 or 15 whatever tokens that are all of a sudden +5/+5.
See, I usually play it the other way, but then again, it's usually when I have like doubling season or something in hand.
Yeah.
Because I play it out there and like,
Extra-
come to me,
extra counters,
removal.
sure.
Rattlesnake card, man.
Eldrazi Conscription has killed me a bunch of times in token decks.
It costs 8.
No,
Yeah.
it's
You're thinking of
we
Eldrazi
discussed-
Monument.
oh, sorry. Eldrazi Monument.
That's a conversation from Max and I earlier.
Conscription's great too, but no. Monument giving them +1/+0 and flying and indestructible.
And
Oh, and you have to sack one during your upkeep. Oh,
Oh,
shucks.
no.
No, just make 9 more instead
Yep.
of 10. That's fine. That's killed me a bunch of times in token decks as well.
I like that the anthems, we touched on this a little bit, but they differ between what colors you play in.
Yeah.
So like when I think of token decks, usually I either think of like green. Green's involved somehow. But then you start thinking of like a zombie token deck. Whether it's Ghoul-Color Gissa or the Scarab God, your anthems come from all the other lords because you're building zombies.
Right.
So that's just interesting in that anthems can come in different forms, I guess,
Black
depending
tends
on
to
what
have
colors
them-
you have.
Black tends to have them on creatures.
Yep.
There's a couple in blue, but they're both things that care about flying. There's Favorable Winds, which gives flyers +1.
Yep.
And Gravitational Shift, which gives flyers +2/+0.
And non-flyers -0,
Yeah.
-2.
Yep. And I run Grav Shift in my Talran deck because that's a big deal there, turning those 8 2/2s into 4 2s.
Yeah.
And then it also shuts off some ground-based stuff too.
Yeah.
So I've liked that card's really good in that deck, but that's a very blue feeling thing too because it only affects flyers.
I think your best anthems are in the color of white because they don't care about creature types, anything
Yeah.
else, and they come on creatures, they come on enchantments,
Yep.
all that fun stuff.
And like I said, Dictate can be flashed in, and it gives +2/+2. And you have a couple ones that do weird things like, what's the one that when it comes into play, you return a creature from your graveyard to your hand, and then you put counters on it, and it's an anthem.
Ooh, I have no idea.
Man, I think it was Lorwyn Block. It was in one of the Commander precons too. It was in I think the.
It's not Karmic Guide. It's
no. I
I
can
don't even
picture the
remember.
art. Yeah, Shared Triumph is creature type. Marshal's Anthem is the one I'm thinking of. That's what it is.
Oh, yeah, the four mana white enchantment, kicker of 1 colorless, 1 white, and you can return a creature.
Yep.
For each time that's kicked.
So for 6 mana, bring a creature back and put an Anthem in play.
Yep.
Um,
I played that in Election. I can't believe I couldn't think of that.
So there's just a lot of like solid ways to make those 1/1s much scarier. Okay, so if you are in a meta where you have to deal with token decks regularly or just to plan ahead, do you guys like put token hate into your deck specifically? Do you have anything that you like, okay, just in case I need to have 1 token removal card?
I used to. I mean, we have one player in our meta that is every deck is a token deck. For somehow he makes tokens in every one of his decks. I used to pack stuff like Sever the Bloodline or Maelstrom Pulse or all those removals that take care of a specific type of creature are the same card name of something. But over time, I've just realized that you just got to outrace them.
Yeah.
I'd rather pack a creature that's going to deal 5 to 7 damage to his face versus a removal spell that is situational.
How about you, Chris?
I don't really pack anything fancy for him. Wrath of God works against everyone that you play against.
It does. I don't anymore. I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Max. I used to bear that in mind, but that was also when our meta was smaller, and every pod or every other pod I was playing against our friend Frank, who plays a bunch of token decks.
Yes.
Now that I might not see him because our meta's much larger and there's more people there,
and he
doesn't
show up.
Right. I might not see him once a month. I don't feel the need to have as many answers just for tokens.
It's fishing season. He won't be back till like October.
Right, exactly. But I would say if it's something that you do see a lot of, just do a search on Scryfall or whatever for the words, what is it? The same name as that permanent, because there's a half a dozen or there's more than that. There's like 15 or so different cards that like do a thing like Detention Sphere, where when Detention Sphere enters the battlefield, you may exile target non-land permanent and all the permanents with the same name as that permanent. So just from the get-go, that's basically a Oblivion Ring, which is a perfectly fine card. Except for you can Oblivion Ring something and then hit everything else with the same name as that.
Yep.
So if you're playing blue-white and you're playing Oblivion Ring, I mean, Detention Sphere is just better.
You should just be, if you're playing blue-white, you should just have a Detention Sphere in there because of the versatility.
So it's a useful, worst case, it's a Oblivion Ring.
Yep.
But if someone, drops Army of the Damned and puts 13 zombie tokens in play, you can just take care of all 13 with 1 drop. There's also things like Echoing Truth or Echoing Decay that do a thing to all creatures with the same name. Sever the Bloodline, Max mentioned, Maelstrom Pulse. Maelstrom Pulse is probably worth running just in general anyway.
If you can afford it.
If you can afford one, right, yeah. Speaking of the price of EDH last week. Because that card has really crept up from, 10 to 15 to...
Thank you, Jund.
Closing in on 30, I think, now.
Yeah, thank you, Jund.
Yep.
But it is, it is a ridiculously strong card.
Yeah.
So, I think if you can swing one of those cards just in case, that also does other things. But there's stuff like Aether Snap that's destroy all tokens. And unless I was seeing 2 token decks every pod, every game, I'm not sure if that kind of thing is worth running.
No, I can't even think of the name of the enchantment. It was printed just recently. 3-mana enchantment, all creature tokens get -2/-2.
Yeah, yep. And there's a -1/-1 version of that out of Return to Ravnica.
Yep.
I think that is -2/-1 in cons, maybe.
Yeah, somewhere. It was recently, within the last couple of years.
There's also cards that destroy things based on CMC. So I do run Ratchet Bomb in my Ghost of the Trader deck. But again, it's
which makes sense.
And I can recur it, right? I play it. I almost 95% of the time it's set to 0 because there's always a couple tokens someone's got in play. And then it bounces back to my hands. So I can do it again and do it again. Other than that, I don't run Ratchet Bomb anywhere else.
Yep. You got Engineered Explosives, which is a better Ratchet Bomb, but
right, yeah.
Now we're talking about another really expensive card for God knows why.
It gets played in Modern, I think, doesn't it? In some
I might play it in
Do
Modern too.
I was talking a little bit on EDH Rec on the Slack to somebody who swore that Knight of Souls Betrayal.
That's a pretty good one too.
Ridiculous tech in his meta because he said in his particular deck he's mostly playing fairly big beaters, so he doesn't care, and it just shuts off every token deck. It shuts off people that are running like it would kill my Edric deck. I would just be screwed unless I had a counterspell in hand.
And guess what? With the new Dominaria cards, Knight of Souls Betrayal is a legendary enchantment.
Yeah.
There's another historic card for you.
Yep. So that's an option. I've seen people run that. I mean, Elish Norn, you mentioned before. Elish Norn just kills tokens.
It's like the only Praetor that I don't mind people playing.
I get it. I mean, it's an Anthem and
Because it's not actually like shutting you down.
yeah.
Unless you're playing tokens, which sorry.
Right.
Because you're probably playing Elish Norn too, so I don't even want to hear it.
Yeah.
But like the other Praetors they kind of lock you out of the game and really make it unfair, unfun game to play.
Elish Norn just like I always feel like, you deserve that.
Yeah.
Like,
And
that's kind of how I feel about it. Like,
the thing with Elish Norn is if you don't get it out fast enough and they have some anthems in play, that Elish Norn is just reducing their power and toughness. It's not actually wiping the board anymore.
It just helps you get more advantage.
Yep.
I've seen weird games too where there's an Elish Norn and a clone of Elish Norn and like a third person clones an Elish Norn or something. I've seen that happen before. And like the math now, my brain is hurting. Okay, so you two are even because your Elish Norn washes out Elish Norn. There's also things that hurt your opponents when they have creatures that come into play or like ETB. So Rakdos Charm, which is a really, really good card too. But I can't think I've ever died to it. But it's a great card. People should run Rakdos Charm if you can.
Rampaging Ferocidon.
Yeah.
Oh
hurts you.
yeah, that won me a game in the 1v1 tournament this weekend.
So any advice for people that want to build a token deck like Max, who's got some idea here?
I do have an idea. So my idea, I'm going to build Naya tokens.
Which I have done, but mine was Super Friends tokens.
Yes.
So who's your commander going to be?
Kahiji, the Honored One.
Creatures that
Whenever a creature attacks your opponent, it gets
plus
+2, +0.
So you have an Anthem built into your commander.
And some politics so people
Naya?
yes.
Yeah.
So people don't attack me. Hey, if you attack Dana, your creatures get +2, +0.
It doesn't work. I will never fall for that ever again.
I was like, why doesn't it work? It won't work against me.
Chris is smart.
Chris is smart.
Hey,
Yeah.
it worked with Edric last night. Hey, if you attack him, you get to draw 4 cards. Oh, okay.
Did it really? Oh, that should never work.
That-
Never, ever. As someone who has an Edric deck, ignore me when I say that. I'm lying.
I've
Dr.
totally
Mike.
done that when I've played that before too. It's just like if you don't, if you guys just like attack each other, you get to draw cards.
That would be Dr. Mike that
You did?
that
Okay.
fell for that.
Even with an Edric deck, someone plays an Edric. If it's not their commander in particular, I'm like, ooh, I can sneak a little bit of value out of this. But when Edric's the commander and they've got like 7 flying men in play, don't fall for that.
No.
I guess my biggest advice for someone who's building is start simple. Don't go into like the heavy tech decks that are out there because you're not going to understand how they play.
And tokens tend to be very triggery and very involved. There's a lot of dice in play and stuff like that as well.
And this is also one of the few times that I will say that the general is what makes the deck. You got to pick the right
Yes.
general for how you want to play your deck because they're just going to add the exponential amount of value to your tokens.
Yep.
Mhm.
Well, in this case, Max has the Anthem built in. I like that.
Yep.
I also my big piece of advice is check your colors. Some colors I mentioned that there's a couple Anthems in blue, but blue doesn't really interact with tokens very well at all.
No.
But Naya, the 2 colors you want are white and green, if at all
Yep.
possible, and you've got both.
Yes.
So that means you have Doubling Season, you have Parallel Lives, you got Anointed Procession, you have Cathar's Crusade, you've got Druid's Repository.
The reason I'm picking Naya over Abzan is we have some Abzan token decks in our
You
meta,
do, yep.
and I just really want to play Perforos.
Okay, yeah, sure.
I actually took Perforos out of Alesha.
Yeah.
Did
Yep.
you?
Um.
It's also a $20 card now.
It's also just felt like a slimy way to win.
Sure. I
yeah,
get that. Max didn't do it. He doesn't care.
I'm
he
slimy.
did play Edric last night.
I
so.
did play
Yeah,
Edric
right.
against Narset.
Against the 12-year-old playing Narset.
He was older than 12. I saw car keys.
I think he's he's like in college.
Yeah.
They all look 12 years old to me nowadays.
Same here.
Any other token advice? I would say there's weird synergies with tokens that you don't think about just because you have so many bodies in play. So something like Glare of Subdual, which lets you tap a creature to
Oh.
tap a creature down. But outside a token deck in a multiplayer format, that's not a good card.
No.
Because maybe 1v1 you're okay with like tapping down 3 of your 4 creatures to hit your opponent's 3 creatures because you're going to get 1 through. Multiplayer, that's terrible math. Except if you're playing a token deck where you've got 20 bodies in play, 21 ones out,
Yep.
and you can lock down everyone's board by tapping it out and still have 4 or 5 tokens free while you're making more.
Aura Shards is another one that's very similar to that.
Yeah. Although Aura Shards, I think, is probably... I probably don't run Aura Shards in enough... I mean, if you just get one kill off an Aura Shards, which it's pretty easy to do, drop an Aura Shards and play a creature, and it's probably paid for itself. Let alone if you get 2 or 3.
Yep.
But on a token deck,
But Orshards turns into another.
it's a soft lock in a token deck
Yeah.
almost.
You play that, and it's going to draw the removal out, so you can play your doubling seasons,
Right,
your other
yeah.
Yep.
big time win
Because
cards.
if you don't deal with the Aura Shards, the person drops 5 tokens, and then they just kill every artifact in play.
Yep.
So you have to deal with it.
I definitely agree. And maybe Epic Struggle.
Yeah, right. There you go. Yeah. Well, Mari's Wake, which is a great card just in general, but like there's enough times, like for example, you played in your Dromoka deck.
I do.
But that +1/+1 doesn't really mean very much in that deck when all your creatures are like 5/5s. I mean, it does, but how many times do you have like 7 creatures in play?
Not very often.
Right. Whereas in a token deck, not only is it doubling your mana, it's giving all those making those 1/1s 2/2s. That does make a huge difference.
Yep.
And you're in colors for that and Naya as well.
If you
Yes.
ever want your opponents to just scoop on sight, play Cathar's Crusade, and then make 100 tokens.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Like I don't even want to do the math at that
No.
point.
And if they have haste, it's over. Or Perforos, whatever.
Right.
Woo!
Yeah. And yeah. Right. You say you're in Porpros and Impact Tremor colors.
Right. And I also wanted to avoid Jund because I would have just went into the whole Grave Pact Dictate of Erebos lock, and I don't want to be that guy.
Smokestack.
I already do that with Brago, apparently. I get told I don't do nice things.
We didn't mention this, but I want to say once again, Teferi is a monster in that. Well, not even in that Brago deck. Just like that's being able to draw a card and then untap counterspell mana is so
Mm.
strong.
Mhm.
Suck it.
Yeah, that was great. You weren't even trying to. You're just
I wasn't even alternate.
I'm just gonna draw cards and untap. In that deck where you can blink him, draw 2 cards, untap 2 mana, or untap 4 lands.
I was drawing 3 cards a turn and untapping all 5 of my lands because I would blink the 5th land with Venzer
That's right.
to exile it and untap all my lands.
Ugh.
Yet that was the game that went 4 hours between you and the Shillelagh guy.
Right.
Yet because you killed me instead.
I did.
I would have
I knew I
comboed
could
out.
eventually take care of him.
Mhm.
He doesn't run many ways to win games, so I knew eventually over the course
Apparently, from the story that we heard.
of 2 hours I could draw down to a 5-card, 6-card combo.
I remember sleeving up my standard deck, coming back and going, "You're still in the same game?"
4 or 5 different people were like, "Is this the same game?"
I played 2 lengthy EDH games. Like by the time that game finished, James like, "You want to play another?" And I'm like, "It's 9:30. Like, I've been here for 4.5 hours. I want to go home and sleep."
And we did have a lot. It was like very interactive, so it wasn't like I was bored. But yeah, that was insane. All right, we're straying off topic here, like we sometimes do. Just a couple more things I want to ask. What's your personal favorite token card?
No, are we talking actual token card
Whatever.
or token generator?
You know what? Interaction, whatever that you would consider a token card, whatever you want it to be. What would it be?
I have 2 that create tokens that I really like.
What are they?
I have a personal, hold it near and dear to my heart, the Sliver Queen.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
for sure.
And my other favorite one would be Hangerback Walker.
Oh,
Okay.
so good. That card is so good.
I have a personal favorite generator and a personal favorite token card itself.
Okay.
My generator is Awakening Zone.
Oh yeah.
It's
Oh, that's
2
a
and a
good
green,
one.
and you make an 0/1 Eldrazi Scion that you can sack for mana. The reason I like it is nobody removes it.
No.
Nobody. They look at that and say, "It can't attack me." Cool. And-
Essentially, it winds up being a better coalition relic.
Trigger
Yes.
Aura Shard.
That you have the
Tap
option,
it with
right?
the Glare of Subdual. Tap your
Or-
creature.
Or Druid's Repository and just make mana off of
Yep.
them.
Yeah.
M-
Oh, it's madness.
My favorite token card in general, though, is the foil clue token from Unstable this past year.
Yes, that's a great looking like physical card.
Yes.
I've got 2 of them here. One is Ophiomancer.
Of course
I love
it is.
That card. I love that card. Is it makes a token every turn if you have a sack outlet.
Yep.
And it's good in my Glissa deck, but in my Tesa deck, I'm like if I have Tesa out in a sack outlet and that it's a free spirit every turn. I love that card. I also am a big fan of Ogre Slumlord, which should be no surprise either. I also have that in a couple of different decks. I love Ogre Slumlord, and so does our friend Patrick. And I will be putting that. That will also be in our definitely in our budget Mirren Rats deck.
Kind of have to. That just fits theme.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. So what's the favorite token deck you've played against?
Played against or played?
Yeah, either way. Either one.
Okay. I have 2 of them.
What do you got?
I have the wonderful Gave deck that I love to play that I just can't seem to win every time I play it. But and then my second one, and the first time I ever played it was your Talran deck. Just sitting there going, I get to draw 2 cards and make a 2/2 flyer, pass the turn.
I'm an important and to ponder and to anticipate and to opt, and I made 8 tokens while I was doing all that and drew a handful of cards.
Refilled my hand.
Seriously, that deck, because like people, you say Talrad, and people are like, oh, it's just like 40 counter spells or something. And I've got like 4 counter spells or 5 in that deck.
It's 40 cantrips.
It's all cantrips, which doesn't sound fun, and that's super fun to do.
Oh, it feels so good when you're playing Commander. It's like, oh, this big stack of cards. I'm going to go through that in a quick hurry.
Yeah, right. No, seriously, that's a fun I like my deck. Well, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I think it's fun, too. I'm glad someone else appreciates it. What do you got, Max?
My favorite token deck to play against is Frank's Gave deck, because I take a lot of pride in when I beat Frank when he plays Gave.
That's his baby.
It is his baby.
He's had that deck for 6 or 7 years, I think.
My favorite token deck, granted, I've only built a few of them in EDH existence, but before I started playing with you guys, and this is right when I started playing in EDH, I built a Tristani deck.
I remember you talking about it. I don't think I ever saw it.
No, I think it was together for like 3 weeks because it just turned into Sigarda.
Oh, sure.
But
Okay.
it was fun because it was, I make a token and gain 2 life. I make a token and gain 2 life, and now I populate and make a ton of tokens and gain a bunch of life. And
one thing about token decks, they're busy. You always are
Yes.
doing things. It's never like a boring thing to do. There's always a ton of interaction.
And the meta I was playing in at that time was only like a few people I worked with, and we were all still new to the format. So commander damage wasn't really a thing. We just wanted cool generals. We didn't care about using them. So I just, it was the brawl philosophy is I'm going to gain all the life and you can't get me to 0. And that's how I won games.
Nice. Well, I will also say Frank's Gave deck. Our friend Frank.
It's a really
good deck.
It is super tuned.
But it's not a combo deck.
No.
Somehow he's playing a Gave deck with no infinite combos, really.
Yeah, and I do believe he even took out the stacks portion of it recently.
I think
He took out one of them. I think he runs Dictate
Still
over
Dictate in
Grave
there
Pact.
'cause
But
it's
of
expensive
Flash.
and it's tough to cast and it has Flash.
yeah, the Flash is better than triple black on Grave Pact.
Yep.
But yeah, it just overwhelms you, and you can see it coming, and it's just the amount of enchantments that you have to deal with, whether it's Cathar's Crusade or Druid's Repository or all the token doublers, you have to have removal at hand at all times, or you're just going to find yourself looking at 50 tokens.
The one thing I got to say about that deck is every time that you play against it, it's always a different way that's getting played.
In different
Yes.
tokens. Like
Yeah.
there's a gazillion different tokens in play. Gave is good in the deck, but it isn't necessary to have him win.
Yep.
And Gave is a pain in the butt to remove when he does play it.
Oh, it's an
because
annoyance.
you go to kill it, and he just pulls 3 counters off it and makes them into tokens and doesn't care because
Yep.
he'll just recast it. And
Linvala takes care of that.
that's true. Yeah.
On the same note of what Chris just said is that Gave deck, you think you have, okay, I have 2 turns before it's going to go off, and it goes off the next turn. However many turns you think you have before the pieces are assembled,
You'll
subtract
get
2.
You'll get caught by surprise.
Yeah, subtract 2, and all of a sudden, how did Doubling Season just hit the field when he doesn't even have the mana for it? Granted, he does cheat from time to time, but whatever.
Right. He's got he's got 3 doubling seasons in the deck, so that helps.
These dice tap for mana. Sure, I don't remember what even put
There's
those
too much
dice
going
there.
on. I've lost count of what's
I'm
happening.
gonna call him on his shuffling because half his cards are one way and half the cards are the other way.
There's I actually heard somebody the other day say that they franked their deck at their card shop,
And it wasn't
And
one
it
of
was-
us.
And it was somebody who I know doesn't know who Frank is. So they've just organically picked up that as a term, having no idea who it's referring to.
So yes, as Chris just said, Frank doesn't care which way his cards face as long as they're all face down.
I did have to have a nice chat with him because he came to that Modern tournament,
And
and
he
I was
had-
like,
he had to
"You
tell him."
have to make sure that they all face the same way." He's like, "Really?" I'm like, "It is a rule. If someone calls you on it, you will get a game loss out of that because you could be stacking your deck."
So now the rest of us like our cards facing the same way, and
Yes.
you'll hear us every Tuesday night. Someone will go, "I just franked my deck." Bleep, bleep, bleep.
I heard it last night from somebody.
I did it at home last weekend, just goldfishing, and I super franked my deck. Not
That's
only
so
were
annoying then,
not
too.
only were they upside down, but they were flipped too.
Upside-
So like I would be like, I drew a hand and I had 3 cards facing me and 4 backs of sleeves, and 2 of those backs were upside down. I'm like, how did I do this?
I'm just glad he doesn't remember when I did that to him the one day.
Mm.
I walked
On
up.
purpose?
He went to the bathroom, and I went over to his deck, and I took his general, put it in the middle of the deck, then picked up half the deck and spun it and set it back down so it all looked like it was. And he started shuffling, and then he's like, "Oh no!" And I'm like,
I actually, what I think happened is I noticed the cut. So I picked the cut up. I'm like, okay, cool. Here's Brago. And then I just put the cut back down, not realizing it because I grabbed it from the sides and started shuffling. And I'm like, and you're sitting there in the corner behind the counter just giggling like a little schoolgirl.
I will also say I like Chris's Alesha deck a lot too. That deck is really fun to
Well,
play.
thank
It's fun
you.
to play against, and I've played it a couple times, and it's fun to play. It's really triggery. There's a lot going on. Same thing as kind of Frank's Cave deck. You think you have time, and then you don't. All of a sudden, you just don't. There's just too much value on the field, and you can't deal with it all.
I actually faced an Alesha deck last night with Bob.
Okay.
And my mentality was, okay, this is going to be Chris's Alesha deck. And so I got all gung-ho for it, and I'm like, oh, it's not. It's not Chris's Alesha deck. It's like there's no Entomb on turn one, and there's
a
no...
lot of the new players have not seen my deck because like there's always new people who keep coming in, and I'm always busy doing something else on a Tuesday or whatever, and they leave before I sit down to play a game, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just play with my usual people I always play with.
Alesha doesn't on the surface look like it's going to be a really effective commander, but because I remember reading it and being like, whatever. When you see it played, it's shocking how really good it is.
You really have to dig deep for some cards.
And
though.
it forces you to play a really lean, low curve deck too,
Yep.
just by default. So that helps as well. Like you can't run big, stupid battle cruiser stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
I
but
have
like,
one big stupid battle cruiser in there.
What do you have in there? This big
Elishnorn.
Sunthing?
Elishnorn.
Yeah. Which surprise, surprise. All right, I think that's probably it for tokens. I don't think it's like a really complex subject, but it's a fun. I love token decks. They're fun.
They are fun.
So if you do not have one, I think everyone should probably have a token deck in their arsenal. Max included is now building his. So
I have been contemplating on building another one too.
what do you, any particular commander? or anything?
Slimefoot, man. Oh, he
Slimefoot's
looks
a cool
so
card.
good.
Yeah.
I traded my timestamp one away. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. I have like 5 non-time
Yeah,
stamp
so do
ones,
I.
Yeah, it's because it's an uncommon. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Slimefoot's cool. All right, I think that's it for us. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.